Thanks very much, everybody. It's good to be back finally in this part of the world. It's been 3 years since I was at the Botanic Gardens, so it's good. It's good to get back, and I look forward to going having a little walk around the Botanic Gardens in the afternoon as well. For the next 10 minutes or so, I just want to give a little talk about the montane flora of West Galway. It's a subject that's very close to my own heart because I think it was partially due to the montane flora of West Galway that I actually became a botanist, going walking in the mountains. It was good thing to be doing, combining walking in the mountains with the montane flora. First of all, I just want to introduce West Galway to you. Most of you have already been in West Galway, I'm sure. The Ice County, if we can just show you there. It starts in Galway. It's all of this land to the west of Galway. It goes up through the middle of Loch Corrib, through the Trasnas and up to Killarney Fjord. So it's all of this land here, and Conaghan can basically be divided into two parts. To the south of the Galway-Clifton Road, it's very flat and boggy, and to the north of the Galway-Clifton Road, you have the mountains, namely the 12 Bens, the Mount Turks, and the Glasnevin mountains. Okay, just a few points about the uplands in Conaghan. The high point of the Vice County is Enbon in the Mount Turks, or sorry, in the 12 Bens range, which is 725 meters in height. Most of the mountain peaks are around 600 to 700 meters, so they're actually quite tall. In terms of the rock, it's mostly quartzite and schist, so it's very base poor, and this has mainly given rise to a peat soil, a shallow peat soil. And the main habitats present are dry heath, acid grassland, and exposed rock. And it's important to note that the areas which support a good montane flora are very restricted. Most of the mountains are very poor ground for montane plants. Just to backtrack a little bit, this slide just shows you that the montane plants in West Galway have been fairly well surveyed in the past. 1802 and 1806 are the first times that the actual rarer plants in the mountains were mentioned by Wade and Mackay, and since then there's been earlier surveys by Hart, for example, in the 1870s, by Pricker in the 1920s, and before that, Webb and Scannell, of course, in the 60s and 1970s, and Ian Roden as well. Did actually a lot of work when he was a early young lad, and I'm glad to say that he's here, still alive. So it's a who's who. It's a sort of a roll call of Irish botany there. Okay, going on to the mountains now. When you go to a place like the 12 Bens, and actually walk on the tops of the mountains, this is what you see. It's a fairly sort of alpine looking place, all right. Lots of bare rock and very sparse vegetation on the outside, and the actual flora of the mountain tops is fairly species poor, but occasionally you actually see some pretty interesting plants. Sorry. St. Patrick's cabbage, for example, and thrift as well is actually quite common on the mountain tops, which is unusual. I want to talk about two main types of alpine or montane vegetation. The first one is Alpine heath, and it's largely confined to areas which are over 350 meters, and it mainly occurs on the base poor site where there's a very shallow peat. Areas of alpine heath are best developed in the 12 bends, and the Brack especially has a very good example of it. And it doesn't seem to occur in the Mount Turks or any of the other mountain ranges in H16. The vegetation is dominated by Calluna vulgaris, and this is typically what you see here. Calluna vulgaris, which is often very low growing and inshorn, and you see the outcropping rock here, so it's a very inhospitable place, which is scoured by the wind all the time. And the two main species which show that it's alpine heath are Arctostaphylos and the berry, and juniper as well, which is occasional in the vegetation. We move on now to the much more interesting type of vegetation, which is the vegetation of the base-rich areas. And this vegetation is largely confined to areas more than 300 meters, between 300 and 500 usually, and it occurs on the very base-rich rock types. And in the case of H16, it's mainly the Lakes Marble Formation and mica schist as well. And these outcrops have very scattered distribution throughout the 12 bends and the Mount Turks. In general, there are very small areas in which they are found, but they do contain a very species-rich flora, which contain a number of very rare Arctic alpine species. And the flora of these places is much more species-rich than in the surrounding black bog or heath or rock outcrop. And here's just a quick few slides of examples of these base-rich outcrops. They're immediately recognized by the sort of dark gray rock type here, and you also can tell by the green vegetation, which signifies the more base-rich rock types. Here you can see a nice exposure of mixed marble formation, I think it is, or schist maybe. And this contrasts with the sort of gray of the quartzite in the background. And one of the main places where you find these rare montane plant species is in this rock type formation called the Lakes Marble Formation. It's a limestone, a very old limestone, and you can see it's contorted into these sort of, it's been compressed and heated. And these areas are very rich in plant species. Here you can see another exposure with this is green vegetation, which suggests fairly good soil development, and this area is fairly grazed by sheep as well. So, okay, I just want to go through a few of the main plant species of these more base-rich outcrops. The first one I want to talk about is the purple saxifrage, which must be one of the most spectacular plants in the Irish flora. It flowers in March, so it's usually flowering before most botanists actually get on the mountains, and it occurs in 6 sites in H16, and it's one of the few Arctic alpine species which can be said to be fairly common in its locations. And here we see it's very common in Scotland, and it's scattered through the northwest of Ireland. And in H16, it's notable that it doesn't actually go any further south than H16 in Ireland. Another very rare fern which you find in these this is Polystichum locus, which is only known from 2 sites in H16, and here you can see it's a very obvious spiky sort of plant. And even at the 2 sites it occurs in, we're actually talking about very low numbers of plants, so it's a very rare fern species. And another rare plant species we find in these these sorts of locations is the Alpine wort, which again is only found in 4 sites in H16, and at all the sites, like we are talking about maybe 10 or 15 plants. Like it is a very, very rare species. And as you can see here, it's very scattered in the west of Ireland, with a few sites on the east as well. This slide, as you all know, in your botanist, like the work is never done. And there are about 5 or 6 species in West Galway which haven't been seen in a while. The first one is which was last seen in 1976, and apparently there's only 1 plant of it seen as well. So it's a species which I've actually looked for on a few occasions, but haven't seen it as yet. And another species which is particularly rare in West Galway in H16 is cowberry, which was last seen in the late 1980s. And I suspect it's rare, or it hasn't actually been seen in H16 for a while, because it's grazed so intensively in the Mount Turks, where it was seen last. But I think there's a good chance that it will be seen again soon. And finally, my final slide is just a little bit about conservation. As I sort of mentioned before, the main threat to these plant communities is the overgrazing by sheep, but it's not that straightforward, because a lot of this montane vegetation occurs in areas which sheep actually can't get to. So quite a lot of the plant species are fairly safe in terms of being sheep grazed, but there's no doubt that some of the areas would actually benefit from relaxation in the grazing regime in Conaghan, and this would see a spread of the species from their mountain crag locations. That's it. Thanks very much.